Hello everyone and welcome back. In the previous video, we successfully created our project structure. Now it's time to add the logic of finding a match with other participants. But before that, let's add some design system to not let our OS override our top bar padding. Now, first thing to do is to go inside our Firebase client, remove this init block. We wanna have a coroutine scope of type coroutine scope with the context of coroutine dispatchers IO and a supervisor job, and a clear function to cancel this coroutine. So this scope is responsible to handle all of the requests to our Firebase. Now, first thing to do is to have a function named observe user status that will have a callback which will return a match state that I'll create in a second with return type of unit. So let's create this match state inside my util package. Let's name it match state, just like that. It's going to be a sealed class, and the first object is going to be data object of new state of type match state. Actually, let me copy and paste it here and add all of the existing objects, which the state of user that is being connected to the Firebase. The first one is new state, the IDLE that stops looking for the components or looking for the match. Next one is looking for match state, and two other one are offering and receiving the match state. And the last one is connected. It means that two clients are connected to each other and exchanging the streams and chats and everything. So let's go back to our Firebase clients and import this match state here. So now we want to launch a coroutine block. First thing is to remove self data. Let me actually create this function. It's a suspend function and named remove self data. This function will remove the data parts of the client's database. So let's use database, and inside the child of the users that I'll create in a second. I don't wanna boilerplate the codes here. That's why I'll create an object of type Firebase field names. As you can see inside the image, we will have a users table and then the usernames, and then inside the status we will update the status here. So let's go back to our project. For removing the data part, we simply wanna use Firebase field names, get the users, and inside the child of developer get user ID, and for the child of Firebase field name data, we wanna remove value and press await to remove self data. We simply wanna call this function. Now, since this observe user status is being called whenever we open the application, it means we have a new session. So we want to update self status to looking for match. But first, let's create a function named update self status. So it's going to be a suspend function again, and this function will update the status of the current client or current user. So it will receive a status of type status data model that I'll add in a second. I'll add it inside the remote here. As you can see, we have a data model that has two variables. The first one is type, which is the status data model type that has IDLE, looking for match, offered match, received match, and connected. Do not confuse this one with the match state. This one is actually the state of the mobile application or our UI, and this one is the data object that we store inside our Firebase database. So let's go back to our Firebase client. Now we have the status is being received from the function. All we do is to use database in the child of Firebase field names, the users, the child of pre-helper get user ID, that we know it's always unique and belongs to us, and the child of status should has the value of the status, of course, and then press a wait to wait for the transaction to be finished. So let's go back up here and update our self status to status data model, and the type of it is going to be looking for a match. Now we want to create a reference of our status like this. Status ref is going to be database that child of Firebase field names, users, and child pre-helper get user ID, and child of Firebase field names, that status. So now we have an access to a status database reference. Now it's time to add a value event listener. We want to use the value event listener, but I rather create my own value event listener inside the utils package. So I'll create a new class named my value event listener. It's going to be an open class, and we simply want to extend from value event listener. Let's remove these to-dos, go back inside the Firebase client and use anonymous class and use my value event listener. Now let's override on data change here, then get snapshots, get value, and pass status data model class.java, and if it's not null, then we have status here. So we will create the new state value using when statement. When status.type are these, so let's import the remaining branches. If we are on the IDLE, we have the IDLE, we want to create a match state .idle. If it's looking for match, same goes match state that's looking for match. If it's on offered match, we want to use match state dot offered match, but we will get this status and pass participant to it. And same goes for received match, pass the participant to it. And for connected, we simply pass the connected. For else, we will pass null. Now let's check if the new state is not null. Let the callback call it. Otherwise, use Kotlin scope and launch a block again and update self status to looking for match. Then give the callback the match state looking for match state. And if the snapshot value it doesn't have anything, we again want to launch Kotlin scope block again and do the same thing that we have done here. So with this observe user status, we are listening for upcoming changes to our status to notify the UI. And if it's our first time or anything comes up, we want to update it to looking for match state. Now we can use this function inside our view model. We will have a function named permissions granted. So it means that permission is granted. Now we have to proceed with the rest of the project. So let's use Firebase client and observe user status. And we will receive the status here. For now, we want to test it. Let's log the status here and go back to our main screen. Inside here, you can see we are having permission granted. So we should be able to bring this view model to our main screen. Now let's use view model instance and use permission granted. So let's run our application right now. Add the permission granted tag here and wait for the changes. Now let's open up our database, remove these two, and wait for our application to run. As you can see, we have created the users. Same user ID is looking for match inside the status database. Now, if we check our Android Studio, we should be that the state is being updated to looking for match. Now I'm going to test something here and change this looking for match to IDLE. Press enter. Go back to our Android Studio. You can see the status is changed to IDLE now. So far, we are able to check our user status right here. Now let's go back to our Firebase clients. Now we know that if a user gets connected to the database, its status is going to be looking for match. Now it's time to create a function that finds the other match with looking for match status so we can pair two connections to each other. To do that, let's create a function and name it find next match. First thing that this one does is to remove self data, of course. It means we are creating a new session, and then it will use another function named private fun find available participant. That will have a callback of type nullable string, and its return type is going to be unit. All it does, it's going to query our database and search for first available user with the status of looking for match. So let's use database reference, and inside the child of Firebase field names.users, we wanna make an order by child and give a path status / type to it. So it goes with like status and type. So we will query these types like this. And it should be equal to status data model type, looking for match, that's name. And we want to add listener for single value events and give my value event listener to it. And if we found something or on data change is being called, you'll create a var found target of type string nullable, make it null, and use snapshots children and use a for each. You'll get child snapshot. Let's check if this child snapshot that key is not equal to our key, then we have a found target. So child snapshot that key and return from for each. Then use the callback to pass either null or the found target here. And of course on cancelled we want to use callback and pass null because we didn't find anything. Now I'm going to use this one inside my find next match. So find available participants. So let's use found targets. We simply wanna log this for now, and we wanna update our status and the target status. So we are going to be offered match and the target is going to be received match, right? So first check if found target is not null. Then we have the target. Then user database, a child, Firebase database field name users, and child of target, and child Firebase field names dot status. Set its value to a status data model, and participant is going to be us. Since we are updating the target status, we are going to be participant, so use pref helper get user ID, and the type of it is going to be received match, status data model received match. Now it's time to update our own status. So use update self status, pass status data model. The type of it is going to be offered match, so we are the one who is offering, and participant is going to be the target. So we have made a match. I'm going to use Kotlin scope to have this one here. Let's move this one inside this block and press wait for it. So we first update the target to receive match. So let's update first our status to offered match, and the target will receive the received match. Now let's test this function. Go inside my database and create a new user with some 6-letter keys, and then use status, and we wanna make the type of it to looking for match, just like that. Let's go to Android Studio. Inside main view model, I'm going to use Firebase and find next target. Of course, we have to launch it inside view model scope since it's a suspend function. Let's run it and check if these two clients find each other. So this one should be able to find this user ID since I have added the log inside my Firebase. If I use this logcat, and you can see it found the username that we simply just added. And if we go to the database, you can see this ID that is the emulator is offering the match to this user and add his username to the participant part of the status, and receiving this participant, which is the target, and offer the match. So the matching system is pretty much working fine. Now let's move to the next video and proceed with the rest of the works. Till the next video, see you everyone.